Hello and welcome back, listeners, to another week of Tits Up. I am Megan,
And I am Sam.
and we are joined today by the lovely Daniella. Daniella, welcome.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm doing great. Thank you. Um, we want to just kind of go through today your experience. I always hesitate with the word journey, in
Yes.
heavy quotes. But we want to talk to you about your experience and your take on a lot of different things that you went through in
hmm
your cancer diagnosis. So why don't give the listeners kind of a just go into by way of your diagnosis what introduce yourself. Let us all know who you are
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
person, what makes you tick, and what you've kind of
yes.
gone through as an overview in the past few months or in the past year, right?
Yeah, yes, yes. So let's start with the good stuff first.
Yes.
Who I am. I have a beautiful American Eskimo, which is the love of my life, and my husband is also the love of my life. um, I am from Puerto Rico, and I live in New Jersey, and I am a scientist by profession and portfolio manager. I work for a beauty company, and on the side, I do health coaching and life coaching, and I'm a trainer of Neuro Linguistic programming. So I'm a very busy person. I'm very multi-passionate person as well. Um, and yeah,
And very
so
smart, apparently.
oh, well, thank you. There's many people that are smart too, but yeah. So everything was all right. Although I was going through a fertility journey before my cancer diagnosis, which I was already kind of struggling a little bit there. And eventually, I got my cancer diagnosis last year. So my diagnosis was hormonal breast cancer. So I was stage 1, grade 2. I think it was stage 1B,
Okay.
grade 2. So it was kind of advancing, like middle rate. And yeah, so it was PR positive, 99 strong. So it was like super hormonal. And yeah, I was very surprised. I guess like we all are like, what the hell happened here?
Yeah. And you can feel free to
And
say fuck.
okay, I was like, kind of swear, kind of, because I swear a lot. and,
Absolutely.
uh, so yeah, I got I'm kind of jumping a little bit, but if you want, I can like tell a little bit about my fertility journey first, and then how kind of one thing led to the other.
Yeah, let's do I think that's a great way. I was gonna ask, like, how did you first discover your cancer or how did the
Oh,
doctors discover it? But I
yes.
think however that plays out,
Yeah.
tell
Yeah,
us.
well, actually, let me say that first. Yes, I discovered my can. Well, it's hard to say when actually I discovered it, because I feel I discovered it before it was diagnosed. So my diagnosis was on March 2023, like just last year. However, I did had my concern literally a year before. So on March 2022, I went to my primary doctor and I told him, hey, I'm having pain on my right breast. It's weird. It's a very sharp pain. Like I could be talking normal and then like, it like
Yeah.
hurt and I needed to stop everything I was doing. I was like, this is weird. I started thinking, well, I actually had implants before, so I said like, and they were kind of overdue to change them. So I said, okay, maybe it's something with my implants and I need to shed them soon. But I didn't want to change them at the moment because I was trying to have a baby. So I said, I just do it, after.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I never thought that it was something really bad, but I went to the doctor and said, hey, can I get this checked? At that moment, I did not have a lump. It was only the pain. And then I'm trying like to recollect what exactly happened. No, I think I already had a lump. So I actually noticed that something was wrong when I noticed the pain, but I went to the doctor when the lump came, and it was something overnight. Like I woke up one day, I go to the bathroom, I shower, and then it's like, oh, what is this? And it was a little mass beside my nipple on my right breast. So there's where I didn't go to the doctor right away. I think it's like your mind tried to protect you, right? Like it
Yep.
doesn't go right to it's cancer. You think about many possibilities. You kind of feel that there's something wrong, but it may not be that bad. So I was like, okay, this is weird. Maybe it's a cyst. My first mammogram was when I was 17. So I actually had issues with having cysts on my breast. So I said, maybe it's another one. And they kind of happen every 10 years almost. So I said, okay, it's just another one. But then, weeks passed. But what I started getting concerned was really this pain I was having. And then on top of it, I had this lump, which I didn't thought it was a lump. It was just a cyst in my head. But I said, let me go and check because I'm trying to get pregnant. So I just want to make sure that everything is all right. So I went to the doctor and I told him, and then, he said, okay, let's do ultrasound. First, he didn't send me for a mammogram. That's ultrasound first. So I went
Okay.
to do the ultrasound, and they kind of know, they stayed like a long time in the lump, and then I don't know, they went and had conversations, and they said, okay, we need to do a mammogram. And he said, okay. So they did the mammogram and they took forever. So I'm telling that this day was a full afternoon, or no, like more than that. Like I arrived like around 10 and I left that place around 4. I don't know why they were taking so long. So I got the mammogram and I noticed that the nurse comes to me and I see that there's some concern. And she started asking me questions. What is exactly what you feel? And I said, well, I feel pain and I come here because, I also have a lump. But are you sure you have a lump? Which now I'm thinking is like, that was such a stupid question. It's like, yes, I did. And she's making reference to the document that I signed initially, where I put the reason why I'm going and I put a lump, and she's showing it to me. And she said, and you'll see why I'm telling you this. So she's showing it to me and she said, are you sure it's a lump? And I said, yes, I think so. Like, you want to feel it. Like, you tell me, you are the freaking
Yeah.
experts, not me. Right? And
Right.
she said, no. And she told me, no, that she didn't want it to touch it. And she started asking me that same question several times, which I found really weird. And I was, okay, maybe it's a language barrier thing. Like, I'm calling it lump, maybe it's not. Maybe. So then I said, okay, maybe it's not. This is what I said because she was questioning me so much. I said, okay, maybe it's not. And said, okay, so you don't think it's a lump, right? And I said, well, I see it, I feel it, but maybe it's not. It was like a very stupid confusion. And then she said, okay, can you sign here? Like, I'm going to scratch it, put a strike on the lump word. Can you sign that it's, like it's not a lump? And I'll tell you, I don't know why I was so stupid to do it. I think I was so hungry because I was there at 10 in the morning and it was 4 and I didn't have lunch and I was just so over it. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Papa, I sign it. And eventually what it happened is that it was inconclusive. Based on all the dynamic on that day, I think they were worried that they saw something. They probably thought there was something wrong with me, but they couldn't tell. And they were kind of relying on me on what exactly you say you have, so it's my responsibility, not theirs. That's how I'm seeing it now. And at that moment, I didn't see it like a big issue, because if it were a big deal, they would probably tell me, hey, you have something, like, let's move on with something else. So I said, okay, whatever. I signed, whatever. My doctor told me, okay, there's nothing wrong. Like, it's inconclusive. It's fine. Like, you are healthy. These were the words. You are healthy. You are young. You don't have breast cancer or anything wrong in your family. Just like, let's move on. And did I feel comfortable with that? No. And after
No.
I had my dinner and everything on that day, and I could actually think, I was like, what was this? This didn't make sense. But, I think that, again, like, maybe my brain was trying to protect me from anything that could be happening. And I was like, okay, maybe it's not a big deal. However, the pain continued. The lump started growing. And then there's where I said, okay, this is not good. Maybe it's the cyst growing, but this is not good. So that was March. The first one was March. And I go again to my doctor on, I called, and it was summer. And I said, this is happening. I have pain, my lump is growing. And then the doctor said, well, you had a mammogram very recently, so we don't expect that there's nothing like bad really happening. You should be fine. Again, told me the same thing. You're young and you're healthy. You should be fine. Maybe it's just a simple cyst. I didn't feel comfortable with that answer at all, but I started feeling a little like, what is the word in Spanish? Is impotente. Like I couldn't do anything about it, and because he's the expert, he's telling me this, right? But at the same time, my instinct, I know how to listen to my body as well, and it's like this does not make sense. Anyway, I just let it go, but I
No,
was
it all
really
makes
worried.
sense.
Yeah. I let it go at that point, even though I was not very comfortable, but I just didn't want to make a big deal about it. But then in September, I just noticed that it was getting worse. So the pain stopped, but the lump kept increasing the size. So in September, I go to my gynecologist. So everything was first with my primary doctor. So in September, I go to my gynecologist. I had like my annual physical, and I say, hey, like, this worries me, whatever. And she said, okay, I will check your mammogram results. And she called me back and she said, I checked your results, like, it was inconclusive. It seems that everything is all right. And I was like, can I have another mammogram? Can you please, like, do a scan or something? And she said, no, because your mammogram was too recent. Recent because it was in March. And I said, and anyway, I got really frustrated. And she said, no, like, it should be fine. Wait until your next mammogram. You can do it in March next year. And I said, okay. Yes. And I was like, with this, I was so frustrated. And I said, okay, doctor. So what you're telling me is that I'm doing okay, that I don't have there's nothing wrong with me, and that you are sure about it. And she, of course, they cannot say that they're sure about it. She said, the only thing that she said, you will be all right. Just wait until March. Your results say that you are fine. I felt so frustrated. To me, an inconclusive result, it's not that you are fine, right? It's inconclusive.
It's
It can
not
be
a
bad.
negative. It's
Right.
not a negative.
Exactly. So at that point, I literally kind of gave up. I said, okay, they are the freaking experts. They know what they're talking about. Maybe I'm just being a hypochondriac, or I'm being dramatic. And this is the thing, that this is why I'm saying this with so many details. Because we start questioning ourselves.
Yep.
Especially we women, we have such a freaking sixth sense and intuition. Like I never got so worried by any of my previous lumps before. I mean, not lumps, cysts. This
Yes.
one, there was something in me that was saying, this doesn't feel right. And, there's a point where if the experts are telling you this, what the hell do you do? Right? Okay, I guess I need to
Right.
listen to them. Right? So I need to listen to them before I listen to myself, because that's all I can do. So time passed, and then in December, I was going in all these, I was having some IVF treatments, which unfortunately they were unsuccessful. And then I was going to a new one in January. I was going to my fourth IVF cycle. So in December, my doctor said, I want to do a full check, a full physical. I think it's time. I want to make sure everything is all right. So I went to have my physical, and he felt the lump, and he said, have you noticed this? And I said, yes. I was almost like emotional about it. I was like, yes, I have been like a full year trying to tell my doctors that I feel this thing and nobody listens to me. And he was, if you are worried about it, I am worried about it. Like, it was the
God.
first time. Yeah, it was like the first time. Yeah, this was my fertility doctor, and it was the first time that I felt heard. And he said, okay, I don't think that it's nothing wrong, because it's soft. Like the shape was very round and it was soft. You know that usually cancerous lumps are like irregular shape and are like a little rough. So I say, I don't think that is nothing bad, but let's, take a look. And he said, like, I want you to go to a breast specialist. So that's what I did. I went to a breast specialist. Actually, that was December, and I could get my appointment on February. So I went to the breast specialist, and she, checked it. She told me the same thing. Well, this does not look bad. Like, I think it's just a cyst. But let's do an aspiration to make sure. So for those that don't know, an aspiration is that they stick a needle, a syringe, and they extract to see if there's liquid coming. If there's liquid coming, it is a cyst. If there's no liquid coming, it's a fibroma or it's a tumor. So she did it, and I see the struggle of her like trying to get liquid from it. And there's where it clicked a little bit, like, this does not look good. And I see her looking at the nurse. And I was like, why are you looking at her like that?
Oh, God.
And when she's done, she looked at me, she takes a breath and said, okay, Daniela, it's not a cyst, but it may be a benign tumor or it may be a fibroma. Again, it's interesting because in all this, like, I'm seeing that something it's going on, but my mind never clicked that it could have been cancer. Probably like the farthest is that, okay, maybe it's a fibroma, maybe something needs to be taken out.
Yeah.
Like this, it's fine. I'll be fine. And anyway, so what she said is like, we need to do biopsy and we need to do it fast. So let's schedule it. And I said, okay. So I had my biopsy in end of February 2023. And sorry, I have like hair in my face, and I keep like, and then I got my results. I think it's like 2 weeks that it takes. So I am in my bedroom. I'm in work hours. I'm actually finishing a meeting, and I get a call. And then it's the nurse practitioner. Actually, it wasn't even my doctor, and she gave me the news that I had cancer. And literally, like, probably you're familiar with this feeling. It's like you're listening, but you're not listening. It's like your soul gets out of your body and you're there, but you're
Out
not
of
there.
body experience. Absolutely.
Yes. And she just kept telling me medical information, but I heard nothing. And I, like, after like an hour of her like talking, I was like, can you please repeat what you said? That I had what?
Could you
Have
send that in
what?
an email?
Yeah, right. Like that I had what? Like I literally was stuck in the word carcinoma. Anyway, it was it was, as you can imagine, like a very sad day. And yeah, that's how I got the diagnosis. And the first thing I had like a very deep sadness and like I'm gonna die, because that was a Thursday. They told me that I needed to wait until Monday because the doctor was not available to get details. So I didn't know what stage I was. I could be 1 or I could have been 4, and you know, so those were the worst days of my life, not knowing my actual the details of my actual diagnosis.
I remember
So
that
yeah.
window of time, and that window of time between you have cancer and any details was arguably one of the more difficult times. I mean, I would say maybe the most difficult day for me was the morning of my double mastectomy. That's where I just lost my shit completely.
Mm-hmm.
But those few days where you don't quite know are
Yeah.
just debilitating. You know, I
Oh
remember
my
just
god.
pacing the house, not knowing who to call, what to do, trying not to Google everything because, you
Yes.
know, what do you even Google? Like breast cancer? Like I knew I had breast cancer, but what details? I had none. It was
None.
it was so, I mean, frustrating doesn't even begin to cover it, you know? Like I really felt like I was like crawling up the walls. I had to like take the
Yes.
dogs on extra walks and like just try to get myself out because it will drive you crazy. And
Yeah.
you know what, one thing that I noticed and that we've heard so many times from different people in different ways, but so many times is this like this gaslighting of patients. You know, like you you knew that there was something wrong, and I 100% agree with you that women have this sixth sense. We have this intuition that we're told from birth is just, oh, you're being crazy, or that's illogical, or you
Mm-hmm.
don't have any evidence for that. And we're like, yeah, true, facts. I don't have any evidence for that, but I know what I feel. And we're, you
Yes.
know, I was just watching this show, and it was like back in like the Middle Ages or whatever, and they would absolutely listen to women and their intuition because they recognized that it was, yeah, you didn't have evidence for it, but it was most often true. And we are
Yeah.
that's just so tamped down nowadays, and
Yes.
it's so frustrating to like listen to you talk about it because I think we all have been in that situation in some way, shape, or form. Not exactly yours, not a year of just begging, will you please just fucking listen to me? Like there's
Yes.
something wrong. Listen. Um,
Yeah.
but it's
And there's like almost, a lack, then you develop a lack of trust from the
yes.
people I should be trusting, right? Because after the sadness, I went into a very deep anger. I was
Mhm.
angry because I was asking universal questions. I was like, could I have could had I how do I say this? Like probably I could have avoided it,
Yeah.
if somebody had listened to me. Yes, at the beginning they kind of listened to me, like my doctor sent me to the ultrasound and then mammogram, whatever. But after that, nobody else did because of a freaking result that said it was inconclusive. When it's inconclusive, and this is what I think as a scientist, when something is inconclusive, it's not giving me an answer, so I do another experiment to
Another
try to
test.
get exactly and evaluate again to try to get an answer. So that's the step that it was missing, and I felt angry about it, and then I got kind of obsessed. So I think it was part of my coping mechanism. Like I didn't know what to
Mhm.
do with the situation, and we feel out of control. So now I know that part of me trying to regain control was like, okay, let me figure out who missed something here. And I started checking my blood work, and actually was showing that something was going wrong. Like my CBC, my blood, like my blood markers were showing that my body was fighting something. Everything else looked amazing, but that particular one is like, hey, there's something here that we're trying to attack.
And
So
that was from like a year before.
from the year before, and I had like two blood work, because I was also in fertility treatment, so I got like some blood work, so I checked. But in my primary doctor put like everything is within range, when there were some things that were not within range. So that's why like I didn't dig in more into the blood work. I mean, and when I say to dig in, it's not that you guys have to dig in into the blood work. That's actually responsibility of your doctor. It's just I'm a functional nutrition health coach, so I can actually read the blood work, but I didn't do that myself because I trusted to what the doctor said. I never had an issue with my blood work, so I was like, okay. But this actually taught me, like, no, Daniela, you have to be also even more responsible than like to take a look, especially if you had the expertise to do this. I really did. I kind of relied on my doctor for that. So I had like this time where I was like with this anger, and I actually like collected a lot of evidence. But then I said, okay, Daniela, what are you gonna do with this? Like I had in my mind, like, I'm gonna do something about it, I'm going to take it to court. Like I was
Yeah.
thinking on legal things, but then I said no. The truth is, maybe yes, I can help others doing that, but the truth is that right now I need my energy to heal. Also, the doctors that I'm working right now are not the doctors that kind of ignored me, so let me focus my energy in heal. And
Yep.
then I will just use my voice to say things like this, to tell my story, and for people to create awareness, because I hope that people that do not have cancer also listen to this wonderful podcast and also learn, for prevention. And hey,
Yes.
like, be aware of your this intuition that you have, and listen to your body.
I, that's so important. I'm so glad that we went into that. I mean, like I was saying, I think that everybody that has had breast cancer as a young woman has experienced that in some way, shape, or form, and it is so goddamn aggravating. Like if it keeps happening to women younger and younger and younger, and
Yeah.
everybody's talking about that. It's kind of like a cliche phrase that's used, how young women are now. Then why do we
Yes.
still have that standard of 40
Correct.
years or older? Why do we still have those rules? I remember when it used to be anybody over 50 should be getting their mammograms. Then they knocked it to 40. Why is it not knocked down to at least 30? I mean, we still have so many women
Yes.
in their 20s getting breast
Yes.
cancer, but at least knock that shit down to 30. And I tend to believe that it has something to do with insurance in this
Mm,
country.
mm,
And I could probably go off on the insurance industry, and I think we probably should in a few episodes.
yes.
But I could probably go off on it for a long time. But when you and I were talking before this recording, we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about your experience with insurance, and I would love for you to
Yes.
tell the listeners
Yeah.
all about that.
No, definitely. So they are in in my story, and I think in many of your stories too, there are two insurance things here. So there's insurance like your actual health insurance, and there's for those that work, right? And we need to take time off. We have the medical leave. The insurance that give you the medical leave permission.
Hmm.
Just to touch base very quickly with the health insurance part. This is another thing with that I cannot understand. First, like having mammograms on if you are under 40, like it's so difficult to get because exactly the insurance, they don't allow it if you really don't have breast cancer in your family or you don't have other conditions, etc. So unless like you fight for it, you don't get it early.
Yep.
And the other thing is that as a stage 1 breast cancer patient, they don't do PET scans. The insurance do not covers it. The first thing that I ask is, can you please have me do me a PET scan, because I want to see if I have cancer anywhere else, right?
Right.
And especially being so hormonal, we have the risk of uterine cancer and ovarian cancer. So I wanted to check, and they say no because it was stage 1, and I was like, cancer is cancer. Whatever stage it is, cancer is cancer. And I have never had a PET scan because it's not covered. So anyway, that's one thing that it's very frustrating, and I think that it should change at some point. The other
Yeah.
one is the medical leave insurance. So My particular experience, right? Like, this do not mean that everybody is having this experience. I did get my medical leave for my mastectomy in April. So, everything was running fine with the medical insurance while I was in physical recovery. So they just kind of put you an estimated end day, and then, they call you to update if you are taking longer or not. But if you take longer, you need to show evidence why you're taking longer. And usually this is the doctor that signs something and tell why. So with that, which, by the way, I find like uh, a little stupid, I will say it like that they literally like call you when you cannot even like hold the phone. Like, they call
Yeah.
me on my surgery day. Of course I
Yep.
didn't pick up the phone.
I had the
On
same
my,
thing. I had
like,
the exact same thing.
right? It's like,
It's
how do you expect me to pick up the phone when I'm like down?
Yeah, I'm on so many drugs. Sir, why are you calling? You want to know when I'm going back to work? I don't know. Fuck you. How about that? How about that's when I'm going back to work? Go fuck yourself. No. I
Exactly.
remember that. I had to fight with them so much, but go on, like tell, because this is something we
Yeah.
have not covered really on this podcast yet.
Yeah, it's like, I give you another, like, an emergency number. Can you call my emergency number? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, so that's one thing that you need to deal with, that because you also, you just got a cancer diagnosis, but you need to deal with all the paperwork, because it's a lot of paperwork, and deal with HR and the insurance, and it's a freaking project. By the way, having
Yeah.
cancer is a freaking project. But anyway,
A whole nother job, we normally
yes,
say on the podcast.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And like, the good side, like, there's a good side about it. Like, you have that alternative to take time off, so you kind of gotta do what you gotta do. But these are like the other side that not many people talk about. So anyways, when I was in my physical recovery, they follow up. Then, I needed more time. My doctor signed, and they extended the time, so it was fine. Where I started having an issue with this company, and I'm talking the insurance company. So my company relies on this insurance company to deal with the medical leave, because that's not their expertise, right? So on like around end of May, I think it was. I honestly, like, my timeline, it's like all fuzzy. So
Yep.
whatever,
That's
like,
pretty normal. That's pretty
let's say,
normal.
right, it's almost like I went through this year, and I don't know how, and I just don't remember days and times. But anyway, like, closer to my recovery, like, I physically felt more recovered. However, emotionally is where I started like struggling. So it almost was that my body now feels fine. So now I have time to think about what happened to me, to actually feel, because you are in warrior mode. You are proactive. You are doing whatever it takes to fight for your life. And once, like, you are okay, in quotes, like, you're
Yeah.
okay,
Uh, Heavy quotes.
yeah, you kind of like now have some time to think about things. And I had a huge emotional delay. This is how my psychologist described it. You had an emotional delay. So yes, I kind of cry here and there, and I was angry and whatever during like my recovery process, but I really never like processed my emotions at all. So I was getting really depressed. My anxiety was going out of the roof. And I was like, what is going on? Because that was me 10 to 15 years ago, and I learned how to cope all this. And now I'm a freaking mess. Like, I have no life coaching knowledge. Like, I haven't gone through therapy. Like, I'm in the ground again. And it was just because I went through a freaking traumatic experience that I almost died. I faced death, and that's very scary. And now that I'm probably out of danger, now have the time to think about that trauma, right? Like to process
Exactly.
that trauma. And pretty much, like my psychologist, I felt that I was actually ready to go to work because physically I was doing better. And honestly, I knew within me that I was not ready at all, but more because of what people were gonna think. I was thinking stupid things like, okay, what if somebody from work comes by my town and I see them and they say, oh, but Daniela's fine, like, well, she's out of work, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking on those things and definitely not thinking about myself. And my psychologist was really strong. No, you are not going back to work. You cannot go back to work. You are not in conditions to go back to work. You stay. And she requested an extension. So that is, long story short, because I know that it's been very long. So long story short, it took several weeks to be approved, which was very, very weird because for my physical doctors, they approved like just in a few days. So this one was literally it took 6 weeks. It took 6 weeks. And I was like, do I go back to work? Do I not? In all this time, I'm working with my therapist. I'm also doing like my own life coaching techniques too. So I'm trying to get better emotionally, but I noticed that I had like so much to
Yeah.
release. So the time, out of work was actually very necessary, but I was a little worried, like what will be my next step here. So 6 weeks after, they send me, they tell me that they deny the extension. And I was like, okay, first of all, you are denying this extension after 6 weeks. And second, why are you denying this extension? And pretty much, my psychologist didn't want to tell me anything. But then she opened up and told me they were questioning, like, if you really needed this. They were asking me extra documentation. They even started questioning my credentials. They just
Oh,
couldn't, yeah, they just didn't, like if I was fine already because I healed my incisions, why do you need more time? So they were not understanding this emotional and psychological thing. And this was this opened my eyes so much that, oh my God, people don't understand that cancer is not the physical thing only. If anything, it's more about the emotional, it's more about the
yes.
mental, and there's not really like enough resources for that part of the process, and there's not enough understanding. You know what somebody at work told me, a leader, it's one
Oh
of
God,
my
tell me.
leaders, told me when I told that I had breast cancer, the first thing that told me, people don't die of breast cancer. That's what told me. You'll be fine.
Uh,
You'll be fine. And that literally like made me have a panic attack in the car. Like I went to the car and I had a panic attack. It's like how somebody can tell that like people do die from cancer,
every day.
Um
Every
yeah,
day people die from breast cancer.
yes.
I mean, we've also talked about this before, like people saying dumb shit, but they probably mean to say nice things, but that I don't see how that one is helpful. I mean, I know that he's probably saying something like, "Well, don't worry, Daniela, you're not going to die from
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Everything's
That's
going to be okay."
intention.
That's the intention, but it comes across in a way like, no, false. I know that people die of cancer. Holy shit, am I about to be one of the people that dies of cancer? Cue the breakdown, and next thing you know, you're having a panic attack in a car. Like that
Yes,
has also happened
exactly.
so many times,
Yeah,
and
exactly. And
it's
and
so
you have to.
frustrating.
Mhm. And you have to deal, this emotional part that we're talking about. It's like what you have to deal about the trauma, everything that you went through, your new life, because you need to adapt a lot of things. In my actual situation, and this is something that we can talk about. I told you before about imposter syndrome, right?
Yes.
Because I was
Yep.
stage 1, imposter syndrome, I don't know if it is the right term for a disease, because imposter syndrome, it's more like when you don't feel that you deserve a success, or you feel not legitimate in something.
Yep.
So maybe that I cannot say these words in English, legitimacy.
Yeah,
In as a,
legitimacy.
yeah, as a breast cancer patient and as a survivor, I felt that, can I call myself like this because I didn't go through chemo, I didn't lose my hair, I didn't have to go through radiation. For those that don't know, when you have hormonal cancer, and if it is early stage, or different situations, sometimes you don't need to go through chemo or radiation. In my case, I needed to do radiation, but because I did a double mastectomy and I had clear limbs, they said, like, we don't need to do it. So the mastectomy kind of saved me from doing it. But then I was going through a lot of shit, but at the same time I felt like I almost didn't have the right to complain. And I
Yep.
researched about it. I was researching about it. I said, is this something like it's me? Is this like a real thing? And I actually heard that it's a normal phenomenon with early stage cancer patients, imposter syndrome.
Yep.
And then I'm dealing with feeling like shit, but feeling almost like I cannot complain. Also with that, I'm physically looking that I'm recovering, but I'm still struggling a lot. But people see me that I'm fine, so they start treating me like I'm all right and normal, and I'm not normal because my brain is not functioning yet. It's like
Yeah.
you need to deal with all these. On top of that, what is the other emotional and mental part that I needed to work with? It was not just this year of cancer. I was freaking battling with fertility for
Yeah.
not really 2 years. 2 years was of treatment. But even before that, I was trying to get pregnant naturally and I couldn't. And before that, I actually had a divorce with my first husband. So I had like
Oh,
probably the past eight,
yikes.
8 years of trauma dealing with
It
it.
doesn't stop.
So yes, and I think this that I'm gonna say right now happened to a lot of people, a lot of us. In my case, I never had a time where I stopped. I was always working. I was always studying. Like, I graduated college, I started to do my PhD right away. I finished my PhD, I started working right away. I was always doing something. So after diagnosis was like, no, you stop everything, you stop your life, you need to focus on yourself now. And it's like you are now sitting doing absolutely nothing, with a reminder every single day that you have cancer, or that you're recovering from a very harsh surgery. And what do I do, right? So it wasn't like the first time that I was like fully doing nothing, facing myself and my
Yeah.
emotions and my thoughts. And I started, like, getting triggered by all these past experiences. I was like, why life is treating me like this? I was in victim mode. Like, why?
Yeah.
People can get pregnant, so many other people can get pregnant so easily. What has been so difficult for me, And then there's other things that start sticking out, which are also your childhood traumas. All this experience, cancer experience, really brings a lot of past experiences, and a lot of existential questions too, you
Yes.
know
Yep.
right? And the first one is like, okay, like, is it God don't want me to live? Like, it's not like my thing to be alive.
It's not my thing anymore.
Right? And I had those same questions when I was trying to get pregnant. It's like, is it not my destiny to be a mom? But what about this feeling that I have inside myself that I want to be a mom, And on top of all that, like the cherry on the top, is that the month that I got my diagnosis was actually the month that I was going to finally have my embryos transferred after
Oh God.
such a long battle with fertility. So I'm sorry if I tell you that I did need a couple more weeks to heal emotionally and mentally.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
couldn't understand that.
No, the disability insurance companies are, it feels so scummy, so sleazy sometimes. Like when I was dealing with them, my doctors were making it very clear to them, both psychologically and because I was a psychological mess. But they were making it clear that psychologically and physically, I was not in a position to go back. Yes, I could walk upright and my scars had healed, but there was the other, I had a month of having to go to a hyperbaric oxygen chamber every day. And then the next month I had to do fertility treatments because I was going to freeze my eggs before they did the hysterectomy on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's another thing that is kind of lost on people. Like, yeah, we were both stage 1, both stage 1B,
Mm-hmm.
but the treatment may not be chemo, the treatment may not be radiation, but the treatment is hormonal. And the hormones being immediately just taken out of your system and out of your life, whether it's through tamoxifen or a hysterectomy like I had or whatever, that throws you into such a tailspin. And you can't just bounce back. I mean, people,
Mm-hmm.
we've all had, PMS, or we've all had our, hormones going up and down surrounding our cycle. But take that cycle out completely. And
Yeah.
now, like, I couldn't think straight. I couldn't speak correctly. I still, like, I mean, of course, I was having hot flashes, like,
I'm
honestly,
having
like
one
five
right
or
now,
six.
actually.
I
I'm
know.
like trying to avoid doing this.
I wear skirts all the time, so I can just like air myself out. It's so bad.
Yeah.
But like your whole body shifts and changes. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, uh, and it just doesn't seem, I understand why insurance companies do it. Their job is to pay as little money as possible, but still pay, still do their job.
Yeah.
But there is some sort of disconnect between the doctors, the psychologists, and the patients when it comes to disability insurance
Right.
that
Right.
it really messes with you. I went back to work way too early. I was a train wreck, like a complete
Right.
dumpster fire of a human being. And
Yes.
I feel you on that. I had to go back because I needed the money. But my
Mhm.
disability insurance denied that. They denied me a few more weeks or
Right.
months or whatever it was that I needed. They denied it because it was straight up psychological. And,
Yes,
you know,
and that talks volumes about the little understanding about mental health, the importance that is
uh-huh.
given to mental health, and the understanding, as I said, of that mental health is a big part of a cancer patient. And when I this reminds me when I was reading the denial letter, they had, first of all, they manipulated a lot of information. I asked for the medical records because that letter was so misleading that
Yeah.
they sent me 100 pages, literally 100 pages of medical records, and I read the 100 pages, and I noticed that there was a lot of misleading and manipulated information. And one of the things that said is the first thing that sticks in my mind. It's that I went to my doctor, and that one of the things that concerned me was that I wasn't going to be able to get pregnant. And I was like, it's not a concern. It's a freaking fact that because I got breast cancer, I cannot get pregnant anymore because it's gonna kill me if I get pregnant. So, this use of words too can be like really triggering, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's when we are also talking, because you mentioned this about the different type of cancers, different type of treatments. I think that we tend to go very quickly to the comparison route, and that's actually that it was happening for me. So that's why I was feeling imposter syndrome, because I was comparing to others, and I was feeling like maybe I should not complain because there's people struggling more with other treatments, right? I think that we should just isolate the stories. Every story is different. It's not, not only because there's so many types of breast cancer or so many treatments, but also because each one of us carry a different story, right? And these diagnoses impact us in very particular ways. In my particular experience, not doesn't mean that it's better or it's worse than anybody. to me, it was devastating that I got hormonal cancer because the first thing that I thought, did I do this to myself because I was doing IVF? Right?
Yep.
Like I was putting hormones in my body. Like, did I do this to myself? Second, it was devastating because I have been trying so hard to become a mom. And now I cannot do it the way that I wanted, that it was in my body. Right? And I need to do, yes, thankfully I didn't have to do chemo or do her radiation, but I need to do freaking 10 years. That's a really long time of hormonal therapy. It's a very
Yep.
long time. And and as you were saying, these hormonal treatments have a lot of side effects. One of them is that we are losing our youth, our biological youth, very early on. We are getting into menopause early, and that sucks. And that
Yeah.
sucks in so many ways, like in your like emotional and mental. So I say that this cancer is more mental. Like when you have hormonal treatment, it's like more mental. It screw you up mentally because your hormones are all over the place. It screw you sexually because now you have to figure out how to have sex with a dry vagina. It's
Uh-huh.
like, and it's like sorry, but it's a lot of shit that you need to
Oh, it's
deal with.
completely true.
And when the insurance denied me, I was in the peak of starting my hormonal treatment. So I don't know if that happens to you guys, but to me, when I started tamoxifen, my first 2 months, I was a freaking mess. Like, and trigger alert here, I was even having suicidal thoughts. It was
Mhm.
really bad. And I was like, this is not me. That happened to me many years ago and I was over it. Why is this coming? I was like, this does not make sense. I'm trying to live. I have been fighting for my life, but at the same time, I want to die. Like, what is this? This is,
I had that a lot. I had that
right?
a lot.
This is it's really concerning, right? And when I was in that peak is when I was asked to come back to work. So that's why my psychologist was
Exactly.
like, this is just so stupid. Like, I don't understand. You should not be going back to work, but there's nothing I can do, my dear. Tell me.
I remember trying to explain, first of all, thank you for laying all of that out, because I think that, I've talked before and Sam has talked before about like the really heavy duty emotional toll that this takes on people. And I don't think it does everybody enough of a service just to say it's very difficult, period. Like I think that we do need to go into what this looks like, like I
Mm-hmm.
I also had suicidal thoughts. And how did that make any fucking sense in the world? Because I just spent all of this time and money making sure that I don't die. Like the cognitive
Mm-hmm.
dissonance was happening in my
Mm-hmm.
head. None of it made sense, but it was still happening. And it's so treacherous. I remember saying that, like the phrase like maiden mother crone,
Mm-hmm.
or like, from I kind of look into like um old world religion, spirituality, stuff like that. And they always have
Mm-hmm.
mother or maiden mother crone. And I would joke that I skipped right over the mother part. I just went from maiden to crone, just immediately to an
Mm.
old lady. My bones hurt. I'm tired all the time. My
I
skin gets weird. My vagina is like the Sahara Desert. Like, all of it. It's all just fucked. And it
yeah.
happened in the span of about a month. And, when you go through menopause normally, quote unquote normally, and you have this like bell curve, like you kind of like lead
Mm-hmm.
up into it and
Like
then
you're
it stops.
expecting it that is
You're
coming, but here's
expecting,
like
yeah.
pan.
All of a sudden, I'm an old lady and I don't know how to deal with it and all of the emotions that come with it. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for being open and vulnerable with that, because I do think it's very important for people to actually hear kind of the rawness of
Mm-hmm.
what does a difficult emotional time, in heavy quotes, what does that actually entail? And it's
Yes.
rough. It can be very, very rough.
Yeah, no,
So thank
of
you for that.
course.
I just wanted to
No,
that
of
was a
course.
long way of doing it, but thank you for
No, no.
laying that part out.
You're welcome. And because I know that we be wrapping up very quickly, I just want to say, we have been telling the difficult things about the process, but I also want you to know, for you that are starting this process, that it actually start getting better. Okay, it's not terrible all the time. Is it difficult all the time? Yes. Like there's not a day that I don't think about cancer or that I get worried about recurrence.
Yep.
But you start learning how to navigate that. And also the treatment, I think for me that the first few months were the worst. Then it started getting better, but also because I got proactive to start learning how to mitigate my symptoms. And also the time that you take the medication influences, like you are relearning yourself biologically, mentally, and emotionally. But if you have the right support, this can actually get better with time. So I want to leave that there, because there's also a bright side eventually, light at the end of the tunnel. I would say within our circumstance, it's not perfect, but it's possible.
Thank you so much. Before we do go, I want you to kind of do like shameless plug. We are going to be in the description. I do this like people can see like down below.
Yes.
But in the description, we are going to have, your, I guess your CV, we can call it. You touched on this in the very beginning, and I think I was so excited to hear from you on this other stuff. We kind of skipped over it, but you have a very impressive background, and you focus on a lot of things that I think could be really, really helpful for people. So if you are open to it, do you mind just kind of going through that again with people and explaining what it is that you do? And then we will link something in the description.
Course. No, thank you. And actually, it's always a little hard for me to explain exactly what I do, because I am many things. But pretty much, just to simplify, I am a functional nutrition health coach, and I'm also a life coach. So I pretty much work with going to the root cause of things. So that's why, like, I'm very interested also in understanding that. Cancer is not my expertise, so it kind of came later, but I work a lot with women with PCOS, with thyroid problems, like more underlying conditions. Also, people that don't have conditions, but I work with the root cause of things, like really try to understand and work on prevention, because I think this is also the part that is missed with cancer, that some cancers can be prevented, and others, like for example, if I knew my genetic background, I would have probably done some things to try to prevent having cancer. And we didn't touch, details on that, but I learned some things that if I knew before, right? But because my expertise is not cancer, I never really went there. But anyway, I help people on their lifestyle, on their health and their lifestyle. And I'm actually starting working with cancer patients, because cancer. So more in the life coaching part and in general health help, because cancer is not my expertise. I cannot recommend specific things for cancer, but if you are a cancer survivor, a cancer patient, I can definitely help you with, like navigate this emotional roller coaster, and also to help you, in your healthy lifestyle. So maybe you can put my Instagram, and whenever I come with a program or something, I can, they can go and know what I'm doing.
I am absolutely going to do that. And are you okay if people reach out to you if they have questions about what it is that you do? And okay.
Definitely. You can go to my Instagram at Dr. Dani G. You will have it in the notes, and you can reach me in my DM, ask me any questions, and I'll be here for you. Like, this is what we feel, all of us, that is our purpose right now, what Sam and Megan are doing, like using their experience to be there for others, to inform, and for others to feel good. Because honestly, when this podcast came, I was in that emotional like roller coaster and peak, and this podcast really helped me to feel heard and like, yeah, that thing is happening to me too, and these girls like really make me laugh a lot. So in kind of a satiric way, it's a sad situation, but at the same time, like, we can laugh about it also. So thank you
You
guys
you
for
gotta
doing that.
find the funny. You gotta find the
Yeah,
funny sometimes. And thank you so much, Daniela. Like those words are so sweet. I mean, I really appreciate them. I know that Sam does too. Like, there was no intention for this podcast other than to just make sure that people feel heard. It is such an isolating experience. And
hmm,
even if you know cognitively that there are other women out there going through the same thing, those women aren't in your life. You don't know them. They're not in your circle usually. And so we're
hmm.
just trying to create that circle. And I really, really appreciate that. Thank you
Yeah,
for the
no,
kind words.
thank you for inviting me. It's my honor to be here.
Amazing. Listeners, you're going to be able to find all of Daniela's information and in our description, obviously. Um, and I'm sure in our list of guests that we've had so far, every time we've had somebody on, we start to touch on something and I'm like, oh my God, I need more information. So if you're open to it, Daniela, we would love to have you back on and just to do check-ins and see how things are going,
Of
because I think
course.
it is important for people to hear that no matter how depressed or shitty you are feeling, because I was there, ladies and gentlemen, but mostly ladies, I was there. I felt so bad. And I did not see a light at the end of the tunnel. And I can promise you that if I can find that light at the end of the tunnel on this one, you can too, because I'm kind of stubborn in my shitty feelings sometimes. Um,
No,
so thank you
very
again.
true. No, of course, and I'll be happy to come back. And I know that we have many other topics that we can continue talking. Even though I talk a lot, I think that I talk more than Megan, and that's almost impossible. so, so I'm
I
sorry.
know.
I'm
No, you
sorry
made my
about.
job easy. I love this.
But
She
I
cracked
promise
me up.
next time I let you ask me the questions, and I'll stay on track.
You were fantastic. We love you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Listeners, check us next week on Tits Up. Um, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, everybody. Bye.